Hello, everybody. Today is Saturday, the 6th of December, 2025. And we are gathered here today for the 210th session of Mindfulness for Beginners in English, conducted by Nisaranavanaya. I would like to now warmly welcome Venerable Homagama Dhammakusalathero for this session. And we'd like to invite everyone who's participating via Zoom and who may be watching us with our live stream in the YouTube channel. And anyone who may be watching us later on as well. Our program, as usual, will commence with the in-session practice of mindfulness. This will be followed by a talk on today's topic. And this, at the end, we will present any reports we have received to Bhante for his feedback, and then we'll follow it up with any questions if there is any time. So to begin today's in-session practice of mindfulness, I now invite Venerable Dhammakusalathero.
Thanks, Sonali. Hello, everyone. So we are meeting after a break last week due to the adverse weather. We couldn't make it into the program, but this week we can continue. So we will start with few minutes of mindful practice. Today, I think we can do a walking session, mindful walking practice. For this, feel free to turn on video and join more actively. What are we going to do? We are going to select some space, probably like 10-15 steps, that type of a space where you are able to walk in a comfortable manner. While walking, we try to be with our steps. Attention, try to keep with your steps. Notice the texture, temperature of the ground. Notice which parts are touching. Probably the heel is touching first, then the ball of your feet, then the toes are touching. That way, try to be mindful of your steps. And whenever the mind goes to other things like thoughts surrounding sights, it's okay. You can catch it and you can return your attention back to the steps. Time after time, repetitively, the mind goes to other things, but we become aware and we return our attention back to the walking sensations. So this is the task, this is the practice that we are going to do. So all of us, let's go join a walking session. When you hear the bell sound, you can return back to your seats. Okay, everyone. Now you can come back to your seats. That's just few minutes of mindful walking and just to give you an idea. With that, Sonali, you can take over.
Thank you, Bante. So next on the agenda is the talk on today's topic. The topic is on life. In Shell Peanuts, a metaphor for life, it says you're going to enjoy something more when you have to work for it. I think we started this topic week before last and discussed some elements of it. And today I now invite Bante again to continue the same topic and start the talk on today.
Thanks, Sonali. Hello, everyone. So this is a continuation from a couple of weeks ago, and the same topic continues, and we can discuss a little bit more on the same idea. Now, let's say we work, we do things that way, day to day life, we deal with so many things. Sometimes your work matters, sometimes your children, family matters, and sometimes various things for the society. So this way we put a lot of effort, put so much effort. And naturally, when you put so much effort, in a way, you are attached to this process. Your labor is there, and naturally, the labor leads to love. You are attached to this process, you are attached to your work related matters, you are attached to your family, children, and you are attached to whatever the other things that you put time and effort towards. That way, it's natural that we function, and it's natural that we are attached to this process because we have, in a way, we have investment in this. We have invested effort, we have invested time, sometimes even the emotional labor you have invested to this, right? So you have investment here, you have a certain sunk cost here, and as a result, it's not easy to distance yourself from this process. Whether it's your work, whether it's your family matters, whether any other things that you are involved in, naturally you are attached to them. Although you know it is not good to be attached, due to the labor, due to the work that you put in, naturally you get attached. In a way, the labor leads to love. The labor leads to attachment. And it's natural. If something happens to this, if some threat appears, then according to that threat, you feel turmoil. Sometimes you feel sadness, you feel anger, you feel worried because you are attached to this process, because you are attached to whatever the things that you put your time and effort. And if we take an example from Sri Lanka, when the whole country is affected by adverse weather, many people, they go crazy in their minds. Maybe they are not in the danger area, but their loved ones are. So if you can't make contact with them, if you don't know what happened to them for days, if you don't know the situation there, then naturally your mind is full of turmoil. A lot of emotional pain, emotional difficulties appear. Some people, they can't go to work, they can't do any other thing till they know that their loved ones are okay, their loved ones are fine, right? So that type of reaction we can see from within. Although you are far away, you have family, you have friends here, so your mind worries that something might have happened to them, right? So that way, in a natural disaster like this, we can really see how our minds work. We can really see that very uncertainty drives our minds crazy. If something were to happen to them, then that goes into a totally different level. Death, or maybe they are injured, right? So those things create a whole new level of turmoil within. All these reactions come because you are attached to this. You are attached to whatever that you put your time and effort. And that attachment is natural. But according to the practice, the very idea of this practice is that although you are attached to this, although this feels real, this isn't real. This is an illusion that we live in. That's the very idea of the practice or the path. It says that although you are attached to this world, although you put so much work and effort towards this world isn't real. When I say this, some of you might argue, we can't really say that the physical world is outside, the physical world is out there. That way you might say. But can we verify that there is a physical world without the mind? The mind is the forerunner. The mind sees the world. Without the mind, you can't really verify that there is a physical world outside. In addition, when you see the physical world, when you experience it, you feel like you are experiencing the reality. That's how you feel. You feel you are experiencing the reality. But actually, when we think about it, when we study Dhamma, or when we study how our brains work, we can really see we are not experiencing the reality. Instead, we experience something that is edited. We can say an edited reality. That's what we are experiencing. A good example would be your desktop computer. When you work in a computer, you can see the desktop. You can see the icons, folders there, and you know how to work with it, right? But when you think about the reality of the computer, do you really have icons or folders in those places? Instead, it is showing us some virtual reality, which is not the accurate, not the actual one. Instead, this virtual reality will help us to work with the computer, right? I've seen this video where a dog is watching TV and a huge bear comes. So this dog is scared and the bear is there in the screen. And after a while, the bear goes away to the left side and the dog follows and goes behind the TV to see whether there is there is a bear there, right? So the dog thinks that there is a bear. It appears like there is a bear, but in reality, it is something virtual. It is something created. Same goes for our minds. When we work with a computer, we feel like this is real. But if you take it apart, you won't see those folders. You won't see those icons. Instead, the combination, the collection of these bits and pieces, it will create a very nice virtual reality for us. And that virtual reality allows us to work efficiently. Nobody is interested in the pieces of the computer. Nobody is interested what these keys are, what these gadgets are. That's not the purpose of the computer. Instead, all these things come together and create a virtual reality for you. And that virtual reality will allow you to work efficiently. That's the whole idea of this, right? So you can see computer, it is efficiently providing you some virtual reality or edited reality, which will help you to function efficiently, right? Same goes for the real world or what we are experiencing in the real world. We feel like we are experiencing the reality, but when we study our brains, it is not the reality that we are experiencing. Instead, the brains edit this reality for us to function efficiently. If you see the real reality, then you won't survive. So this whole editing game, it's all about survival, passing on your genes. It's all about that. So the whole world, the whole the reality is edited in order for you to pass on your genes to the next generation. That's the whole idea, right? So what we are experiencing is an edited reality, and that will help us to work efficiently. That will help us to survive. It's all about survival. If we experience the reality, we might not survive long. That's the truth. So it is edited, and that very edited reality will allow us to survive. I have seen this article on this idea, and they run a simulation on evolution. And they have like maybe like millions of years of evolution. They run through that simulation. So you don't have to wait millions of years in order to see the results. Instead, that simulation will tell you what will happen after a million years, right? So they have three types of creatures. The first creature will only experience the reality. It will experience all of reality. The second creature will only experience some of the reality. The second one. Then the third creature will experience none of the reality. Instead, that third creature will only experience an edited reality, right? So that way they run a simulation, and after so many years, after so many rounds, they come to a conclusion. They say evolution doesn't favor reality. The creatures who are experiencing the reality, they will go extinct the very first. The creatures who are experiencing some of the reality, they will go extinct next. The creatures who are experiencing none of the reality, they will thrive. That's the whole idea of this game, the survival. Right? So you can see, although we feel like we are experiencing the reality, we are not experiencing reality. Instead, it is a mind-made, virtual, or edited reality that we are experiencing. And that's what the Dhamma says. Dhamma says you are in an illusion. You are not experiencing the real world. Instead, you experience something mind-made. And I have come across this quote from Galileo. He says, many hundreds of years back, he says, I think taste, odors, colors, and other things that we experience in our mind, taste, odors, sights, colors, all these things we experience in our minds. He says they reside in consciousness. Whatever we are experiencing, these things reside in consciousness. Hence, if the consciousness is not there, then the experience will also vanish. As long as there is consciousness, the experience will be there because it is experienced in one's mind. And when the consciousness is no longer there, the experience will also vanish. That's the idea Galileo says. Unfortunately, he couldn't live long enough to prove that theory. The first one, I think he was able to prove it, but this one, he didn't live long enough to do that. Right? So the whole idea is that this is mind-made. We are not denying that there is this outside world, but we can't establish the outside world without the mind. I'm sure you have heard of that sense story that says you have a large forest. For hundreds of miles, there is nobody in this forest. Only trees, let's say. And a gigantic tree falls to the ground, shocking the surrounding, creating a huge sound. And for hundreds of miles, if there is nobody to listen, was a sound created? How can you establish that there was a sound if there is nobody to listen? Only with consciousness we will say, okay, a huge tree has fallen and I have heard the sound. Without that consciousness, you can't really say that. So we are not denying that there is outside world, but we can't really establish anything without our minds. And the minds are tricky. They usually show us something edited. They usually show us an illusion. That's the whole idea of the Dhamma. You are in an illusion. You should see the reality. But when you see the reality, what will happen? The evolution doesn't favor you. When you see the reality, you will go extinct. That's the whole idea, right? So we are trying to see the real reality more and more, and as a result, you will go extinct. As a result, you get to see the reality. It might not be so interesting, right? So with mindfulness, what are we going to do? In a way, we are suspicious of what we are experiencing. We are doubtful of what we are experiencing. So we keep our eyes open. We are attentive and watching what is happening in the present moment. That's the whole idea of mindfulness. In a way, we are doubtful. In a way, we are suspicious. We have this suspicious look towards what we are experiencing. Time after time, for many hundreds, thousands of time, we observe this. We observe the present moment, trying to figure out what is happening there. And let's say you are a newcomer and you start observing, it is not easy to do that. Although you have physical fitness, although you are fit, it's not easy to deal with your mind. Physical fitness doesn't prove that you have the ability to deal with these emotional things, right? So, in a way, it's not easy to catch this mind. The mind is complex, the mind is sneaky, so it's not easy to catch it. Time after time, it will create more and more illusions and try to get away. That's the whole thing, right? I have seen many yogis who come to meditate, maybe for the very first time. They always get caught in these illusions. Sometimes the mind will create some problem out of nothing and keeps thinking, keeps creating thoughts, and finally this person accept the problem and go home in order to resolve that. I think probably like 3-4 weeks ago, a young man, probably in his late 30s, came to meditate for 10 days. After spending a day, he came suddenly and said, Bante, I'm leaving. I asked him why. Then he said, uh, I remember my mother and the family members. I can't stay here. All the thoughts, memories go towards them. You remember your mother, you remember your family members, so you can't stay here. You feel this loneliness kind of a feeling, right? So I told him, okay, that's fine. You have come here for 10 days, at least spend 4 days and go. That way this person get to see the work of his own mind. You have met with the real problem. This is the real problem, right? It creates all these illusions, convincing you to go home. So I told him, at least wait for 4 days and then go. You don't have to wait all the 10 days. Stay for 4 days and go. But still he couldn't wait, right? On the same day he left. After 1 day he left, saying, I remember my mother, I feel lonely without them. And you go home, you spend couple of hours, then you get to realize your foolishness. It won't last long, right? It will last till you go home. And when you go home, naturally you understand your foolishness. So these things are created out of the mind. These illusions are created in the mind. Our attention goes towards them, and out of nothing, it creates this problem. Out of nothing, it creates some reason to go home, right? So that way, it's not easy to catch the mind. It's not easy to catch the illusion. So that's why we say, forget catching the mind, forget catching the illusion. Instead, can you at least catch your breath? Can you at least catch your steps? You keep your attention with the steps, you keep your attention with the breath, and observe that. So most people will say, but I came here to observe my mind. I came here to catch this illusion. Why am I observing this object? Why am I observing the breath? Why am I observing the steps? That way they say. But you have to understand, when you observe the breath, in a way, you are indirectly observing the mind as well. When the breath is changing, not only the breath is changing, but even observer's mind is changing. right? So in a way, the breath is an indicator of your mind. And initially you feel a solid breath. You will say the breath is real. Nobody can deny that. That day you will say, right? So naturally you feel you are observing a real breath. The whole advice is simply to, okay, it appears like the breath is real. Can you observe for a longer period? Can you observe for many breath cycles? And when you do that, naturally the breath changes its appearance. Initially, it appears solid, but now it is rapidly changing. Now, what is happening? Earlier, you felt like you are experiencing the real breath, but now the breath is changing. It is so rapidly changing. Some people will come and say, I can't feel two similar breaths. It is ever changing, rapidly changing. So many experience the change is that rapid, right? But that's okay. Now you get to see that initial breath that you have experienced, it wasn't the real reality. Now this is changing and you try to observe. You try to keep with your observation. And if you continue long enough, then you get to see what is happening. And if you continue long enough, one day you will come and say, now the breath has disappeared. So initially it was real, now it has disappeared. Many people will become fearful. How am I living without the breath? Am I dead? Am I dead or am I still breathing? Those type of questions, doubts might come. But the whole idea is that initially you felt the breath was like something real, and now there's no breath, right? So you feel the breath has changed, but actually what has changed is your own perception. The perception has created this illusion of breath, and when the perception changes, the breath disappears. So you can see it's not the real reality that we are experiencing. Instead, it is something filtered through the perception. If perception wants to show us a breath, then you see a breath. If the perception doesn't want us to see a breath, then you don't see a breath. Right? So that way, you can really see, although these objects are there, they are really mind made. And let's say sitting in meditation, you close your eyes. Many people, they will say, my leg is aching pain in, my back is aching pain in. That way they try to relate to the body that they have. But when you sit in meditation, when you close your eyes, you are no longer experiencing a body. Instead, what you experience is probably like a um, mind-made body. Why am I saying mind-made? You have certain sensations here and there. You combine those sensations and you create a body. You say, this is my head, I feel my head. This is my torso, I feel my torso. These are my legs, I feel them. That way you will say. So you combine these teeny tiny sensations and you create a torso out of it. You create your legs out of it. And sometimes in meditation, you feel that the torso has disappeared. Then again, the questions, doubts come. What is happening? I can't feel my body. Right? So that way, although we feel like we are experiencing the reality, we really are in an illusion. In meditation, when you keep your eyes open, when you continue your observation, you get to see that it's not the real reality that you're experiencing. Time after time, you have to go into meditation and see what is happening. Time after time, you get to see something new. More and more questions will arise. More and more doubts will come to your mind. It's natural because probably your whole life you have experienced something, you thought that it was real, but now that reality is fading away. So it's natural that you get all these questions. It's natural that you get all these doubts. But the practice will tell you not to give in to those doubts. Okay, this is questionable. Okay, this is doubtful. But you continue your original observation. That's the whole idea. Don't start thinking about the doubt. Don't start thinking about the question. Instead, you repetitively continue your observation. That way, the whole idea of this practice is that you can transcend this illusion, and one day you will be able to experience the real reality. And that is gradual, not like suddenly happening out of nowhere. Instead, let's say you meditate for 1 hour. According to your practice, you get to experience a glimpse of the reality. Let's say you have meditated for 1 week, then according to your level of practice, you get to experience a little bit more. Let's say you have continued your practice for 1 month, then according to that level, you get to experience a little bit more of the reality. This way, it's always gradually allowing you to experience the reality. What you have to do simply is to continue with this observation. It says that the practice always moves forward. Only trouble is your doubts, your questions. If you give in to your doubts, if you give in to your questions, then the practice stops there. So it is always moving forward. What you have to do, you simply do your daily sitting. You simply do your daily walking. You go to your daily life and try to maintain a certain level of mindfulness. That way, every day, you simply do your part and allow the practice to grow. And when you continue like that, when you continue for a month, when you continue for a year, you get to see now you are experiencing more and more reality. As a result, the pain, the stress, the suffering will disappear. Why? Earlier you were in an illusion and you thought it was real. You had attachment towards it. You have invested your time and effort towards it. And naturally, if you believe in something that is not real, then the result is suffering. The result is stress. The result is anxiety, right? Because you trusted something that was not real. The whole tension, stress, anxiety, or suffering is generated out of that. But now, more the reality you experience, more peaceful you will feel in your mind. And when you continue that way, when you continue for few years, you can see that you're experiencing incremental levels of peace within. You are getting closer and closer to the reality, and as a result, you feel more peaceful in your mind. The problem is that when you experience more and more reality, in a way, you are getting closer and closer to getting extinct. That's the whole idea of Buddhist practices in a way. Try to end this whole journey of samsara. As long as you are in an illusion, the journey will continue. It's like that theory in evolution. The favors, the evolution doesn't favors the reality. It doesn't favor the reality. Whenever you're experiencing reality, it's the end of you. Right? So same goes for the practice. In a way, we are going to end this whole journey. The journey is based on an illusion. And when you see the reality, there is nothing to continue. Right? So that's the whole idea. You have to put your effort, work towards the practice and really see what is happening. Otherwise, you are attached to this illusion, and due to that attachment, you are suffering in your life. Right? When something happens to your loved ones, you suffer. When uncertainty comes, when you can't contact your loved ones, you suffer. Right? When certain things happen, you feel fearful. All these thoughts, emotions follow. Why? Because you are living in this illusion. When the illusion doesn't favor you, naturally you feel threatened, you feel fear, you feel worry in your mind. So in these troubling times, it is the nature is telling us, in a way the nature is teaching us to put our effort towards the practice. The nature is showing us the uncertainty of this world. Within few hours, anything could happen. Right? Initially, when the rain started, nobody thought that it's a hurricane. Nobody thought that we will get the highest recorded rainfalls. But it continued, and few hours passed, the whole country was in a disaster. Right? So you can see that uncertainty is there in this world. You can plan, you can have insurance, but in the face of the nature, nothing works. Right? All the communication systems are broken. You can't communicate. Right? Many people, they get to experience life without phones or communication after many decades probably. Right? So that's how it is. That's how the nature is. So in a way, when we experience these troubling times, it is encouraging for us to put more effort towards the practice. Because this is the very problem. This is the very issue. Right? So when we see that, it's good that you put your priority towards the practice. If you prioritize your family matters, if you prioritize your work, then according to that priority, the suffering might arise. But if you prioritize the practice, if you prioritize overcoming this illusion, then that's the correct priority. That's why Buddha says, this is the correct priority. This is the most important thing to do in this life. So that's it. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Bante. That was very deep and meaningful, and I can see it's very thought-provoking as well, because there's a lot of questions popping up on the chat, which we will keep for till the end. You may have even answered some of these questions from people. So I now move on to the reports we have received, and for this, I now invite Panchani to take over. So you're on mute, Panchani.
Oh. Thank you. Avsarai Bante. Thank you, Sonali. Thank you for that insightful talk, Bante. I really hope that with our committed practice, we will be able to break through the illusion of self, illusion of the mind, and come out the other end. That is our hope. So with that said, Nisarana has prepared 2 YouTube videos for you to practice if you are a beginner. Mindful sitting and mindful walking. I'm sure Sonali has now shared the screen with you. So you can follow the links that Sonali has shared on the screen to practice allocating a small time during your day and gradually building it up. You can practice your mindful sitting and your mindful walking, and you can write down your practice as a reflection report so that you can get guidance from Bante to develop your practice. If you are practicing your sitting meditation, you could describe the prominent sensations such as pressure points, how your buttocks are touching the chair or the cushion that you are sitting, your incoming and outgoing breath at your nostrils, raising of your abdomen, etc. If you are practicing your walking meditation, you could describe the pressure points on the soles, sensations at your feet. You could describe how the temperature changes, the roughness, the smoothness that you experience. You can write your experience as a reflection report and email it to beginners@gmail.com or send as a Google form. You can continue your mindfulness practice according to the advice given by Bante to develop your session, to develop your practice. With that said, Bante, I will move on to the reports that we have received today. We have received 2 reports from 2 adults. First report, Venerable Swami Mahanse. Mindful walking. Due to adverse weather conditions, walked inside home, felt hardness of the floor, thoughts appeared and disappeared, felt cold, floor was cold too. Gloomy sky brought lazy feelings, but continued walking until 50 minutes were over as usual. Mindful sitting. Sat on a chair and observed posture. It was like a small mountain. Felt the motion of my belly. It became vague. Focused on touching of legs, hands, and back. Despite of the bad weather, I did meditation for 40 minutes. End of the report, Bante.
Yes. So there are many reasons for us to postpone, avoid the practice. Sometimes you are tired, sometimes the bad weather is there, sometimes you feel sick in your body, right? So many excuses are given in the mind to avoid this, to do something else. That's how the minds are, right? It'll give you so many reasons, and those reasons are tailor-made to you, and it'll try to postpone, avoid today's practice. That's how the mind is. There's this young foreigner here. He's from Morocco, and I think he has some connection with France as well. So this fellow, he was saying, I feel uncomfortable in the body, and due to that, I'm more comfortable in the thinking mind. Right? The reality, it is not comfortable. So in the mind, it's much comfortable. So I keep thinking thoughts, trying to avoid this difficult reality. That's how the minds are. You would always feel comfortable in some thought process. You prefer avoiding the reality, because in reality you feel certain friction, you feel resistance, so you feel much more comfortable in some fantasy. So this boy was saying that he prefers not paying attention to his body. Instead, he prefers getting lost in that mind. Not only that person, even us, when we have some troubling situation, we would always go and put our attention into some fantasy or some other thought process. In a way, you try to avoid this. You try to avoid this reality, and you try to be in this fantasy. Think about something pleasant, right? So that's how the minds work. Always many excuses are given, and those excuses will say we can skip the practice for today. Many fantasies are given. You feel much more comfortable in those fantasies. That's how the mind is. But the whole idea of this practice is to go against that current. So in your report, although the adverse weather was there, you somehow continued your daily practice. That is something I appreciate you, because otherwise you would feel like, sleeping in the rainy weather, or you would feel like watching some movie or something, right? That's how our minds will continue this illusion. But instead of giving in to that, we try to do our daily practice, and that is something I appreciate you. So always practice, it's not the most comfortable thing to do. The present moment, it's not the most comfortable place to be. Right? Mind will tell you, if we think about this fantasy, I'll be more comfortable. True, you feel some comfort there. If you avoid today's meditation, then I feel more comfortable. That's how the mind talks, right? But somehow we try to continue this, and in that sense, your report, we can appreciate you practicing without forgetting, although it's a rainy day.
Thank you, Bante. I will move on to the second report. It's from an adult. Peruan Saranai Bante. Even though it started to write, it's like something is there that doesn't allow it. This report is a result of several attempts. Even though it kept ending up silent again and again, it knows that what cannot be said is communicated. It stops writing. Uncompleted pieces fade away. Sometimes it notices that experience is there, but no chatter on what's going on. Sometimes it's wonderful. and it gives you joy to watch how actions take place. The dislike for the fed up type nature is witnessed as a fading thing several times. That is also now blurred. Now their boundaries are unclear. Sometimes it's like mixed and somewhat can be identified as boredom. Sometimes, even if it tries to get rid of boredom by watching YouTube videos, it also ends up feeling fed up. Before acting on those, two choices arise: to be with it or try to get rid of it. Earlier, these choices or pausing before acting were not clear and went with what arose. Even if it goes to get rid of being fed up, is knowingly. Even if it goes to get rid of being fed up, is known, I think. Sometimes it has started to be with the boredom face to face, even though it is somewhat discomfort. The guidance received through sermons and discussions is very valuable for that. Teruwan Saranai Bante. End of the report.
Yes, so you can see, the mind tries to fill this void. The mind tries to fill this fading away with something like watching YouTube or doing something else. That way, it tries. In a way, that's the whole process of the path. When you pass a certain level, you can see how there's this boredom, how there's this void. And in that boredom, in that void, it is not so comfortable. You feel like you could fill this with some interesting movie or interesting chat or interesting traveling kind of a thing, right? So in a way, you try to allow the mind and see whether this boredom can be fulfilled, whether this void can be filled. That way you allow, and when you allow it, if you have the confidence, you get to see it doesn't matter what you try, still the boredom prevails, right? So you have to allow this mind to understand it. Try to avoid this boredom, try to fill it with something interesting. Let the mind do it and see time after time it is unsuccessful. No matter what you try, still the boredom prevails. For a short period, you feel like you have won, but again the same boredom appears, right? So many people, if they experience this without the practice, sometimes people get to experience it. They don't have a practice, but due to some causes, they get to experience this in life. And some people, they call it existentialism crisis. No matter whatever you do, you can't get rid of this. And many people, they might even commit suicide. There's no point in living when you feel this, right? But we have gone there step by step with the help of the practice. So you know that this is what is happening. You get to participate in the discussions. You get to listen to the sermons. That foundation is there. And due to that, when the boredom comes, when the void comes, you know that this is the result of the practice. This was the real destination that you wanted to arise through many hours, many days of practice, right? If somebody comes here without that foundation, they will call it existentialism crisis. They would say, I am suicidal, because they don't know what is happening. But since we have guidance, since we have Kalyana Mitta, we know that this is the result of many months, many years of practice. And when this result comes, it is not comfortable. The mind tries various ways. In a way, allow your mind to try them. And at the end of that, try to see whether the boredom has vanished. No, still it prevails. Right? So at the end of the day, after trying so many options, your own mind will realize that there is no other option. There is no other option than accepting this. You have to allow the mind to realize it. No matter how much you try to convince, it won't work. So you have to be a risk lover and allow the mind to try. Try to fill it with YouTube, try to fill it with some other interesting activity. Allow the mind to do it and see whether the boredom disappears. Right? So at the end of the day, after trying many things, your own mind will realize there is no other option. That's why they say in a beginner's mind, there are so many options available. A person who hasn't meditated, let's say a beginner, they have so many options available in their mind. They have hobbies, they have work, they have family. All these options are available. If one thing is not there, then they can put their attention towards something else. But in an expert's mind, not so many possibilities, options available. Because that mind has gone through this process and realizes no matter what you do, still it fades away. The only thing is that the void or the boredom that prevails. Right? So not many possibilities, not many options available in the expert's mind. Right? So that's why they say in a beginner's mind, you have many possibilities, many options. But in an expert's mind, not many possibilities, not many options available. Let's say only one option or only one possibility available, that is simply accepting this nature. That's the whole idea. So continue this journey. Try to see, no matter what you do, this boredom prevails. And you have to understand this is the very experience that we want to get after many years, many days of practice. Right? And it's a gift that you get to experience this in your mind. I'm sure it is not comfortable, but still, that's the whole idea of practicing for many months, many years. Continue and see.
Thank you, Venerable Bante. There are some questions on the chat. Would you like me to read them? Oh,
Yes. Yes, please.
okay. This is from Gihantha. Venerable Bante, a very interesting talk today. As we raise our mindfulness, become more aware of reality, and move away from illusion, are we progressing to extinction? Is nirvana a form of extinction?
Yes, you continue the whole thing.
Are Arahant and the Buddha extinct? Is the goal of liberation from suffering extinction?
Yes, so in a way, we can say that uh, evolution, it doesn't believe in samsara. So that's a different matter. But still, when we think about the whole process of samsara, it's in a way you are not dying, right? It appears like you died, but you are in some other form, in some other place, right? So that way, this journey continues. Today as a human, probably tomorrow as an animal, right? That's the whole teaching in Buddhism, this whole journey of samsara. right? So in the sense of evolution, extinction means something else. But we try to connect these two together, right? In the Dhamma aspect and the evolution aspect, right? Evolution says when you experience reality, that's the end of you. Evolution doesn't favor the reality, right? So we can relate that to the process of samsara as well. You are more illusionate, you continue for eons. Let's say many Buddhists, they want to go to heaven. They do offerings, they do dana. At the end of the dana, you can see a whole list of wishes, right? So it's my, in a way, it's a hobby for me to read those wishes, right? You get a huge paper, both sides, the wishes, right? So you want to go to heaven, you want to wish good health for somebody, right? So all those things are there. Of course, we do them. Of course, we uh, bless them. But the real idea is that when you go to heaven, you are assured that it will continue for many eons. Same goes for the other extreme. When you go to hell, you are assured that it will continue for many eons, right? So more and more illusionate you are, longer this journey will continue, right? That's why that positive part in Buddhism, many people like that. When you listen to those talks in, let's say, radio or TV, it's all about continuing this journey. The positive part, going to heaven, doing pujas, offering things, all those things come. Rituals, doing ceremonies, katina ceremonies, right? All these things come. That's the positive part. That's continuing this journey in the positive direction. That's what people like, right? But nobody talks about nirvana because it is all about going extinct, right? Ending this journey. So it's not appealing for many people. I remember about a couple of months ago, somebody was saying, Bante, I feel like it's a waste to stop this right now. It feels like a waste to stop this. If you attain Nibbana, then it's a waste. Why? You can simply continue this for a long journey. You can continue in the positive direction. That's what the most people or majority likes. But you can't continue the positive part without the other side of the coin. Right? When you seek pleasure, naturally the pain arises. Many people in this world, let's say the most wealthy people, they tried only to acquire the pleasurable part. But in the process, they become suicidal. Many such people, they commit suicide at the end. Because after trying for so many decades, still the pain follows, right? So if you are illusionate, you will continue for a long period. The samsara is properly strengthened, reinforced, right? If you come closer to the reality, then it's not the evolution process, it's the opposite. You will go extinct. In a way, Buddha and Arahants. So many Buddhas in many eons ago, so many Arahants in for many eons, they have overcome this process of samsara. They ended their journey, right? So that's the whole idea. I don't know whether you would like to end it. That's the question that you have to answer.
Much merits, Bante. Thank you. There is another question from Samantha. Dear Bante, how does illusion compare with the process of cause and effect as Buddha laid out in the dependent origination? Is it just the experience of pure awareness and acceptance of nature through our six senses with none clinging and none greed, hatred, and delusion? Once all defilements have been eradicated, in the present we call reality.
Panchani, can you read it once again?
Yeah, so it says, Dear Bante, how does illusion compare with the process of cause and effect as Buddha laid out in the dependent origination? Is it just the experience of pure awareness and acceptance of nature through our six senses with none clinging and none greed, hatred, and delusion? Within brackets, once all defilements have been eradicated, end of brackets, in the present we call reality.
Yes, so the dependent origination, the whole process runs in the ignorance. So that's the illusion, darkness of ignorance. That's the foundation for this whole process, right? And many people, when they talk about dependent origination, they talk about those 12 steps. They say, okay, this is the starting point, this is the second step, this is the third step, this is the fourth step. That way they try to count those 12 steps. And some of them will say, okay, now I am experiencing this step. Now I have gone to the second step, right? That way they take it so easy. They say, okay, I have gone through these 12 steps, right? But in reality, you don't get to experience those 12 steps. It's that process is so rapid. What you get to experience is simply the final step. What is the final step? Suffering. You get to experience suffering. You get to experience pain. You get to experience worries. You get to experience fear. Time after time, you get to experience it. Right? Let's say every day for many occasions, you get to experience it. When someone tells you something bad, when someone blames you, it comes like an arrow. You get to experience suffering. When you can't contact your loved ones, you get to experience suffering. So that's how we experience the last step only. The rest will continue, but you can't really see it. Time after time, you feel the final step. Suffering arises. Right? Venerable Achancha gives a very nice simile to this. He says, imagine you have climbed to a treetop and due to some reason you slips. Then you slips and falls. Can you count the branches while falling? That's not possible. Can you count it like, okay, I have passed the first branch and now I'm with the second branch? You can't do that. Instead, you remember slipping, you remember breaking your leg. That's all you remember, right? Time after time we slip, and time after time we feel the pain and the suffering. That's how it works, right? So this whole process continues on the foundation of illusion, on the foundation of ignorance, darkness. That's the foundation. So when the light comes, this will no longer continue. That's the very idea of Buddhist teaching. You go beyond this dependent origination. You go beyond these things. You create light instead of the darkness. Right? So we are in the process. You don't have to think about those steps. Instead, simply continue your meditation practice. What are you doing? You are doing simply creating light instead of the darkness. And that's what's needed.
Much merits, Venerable Bhante. There is another question. I don't know whether we have time, Sonali.
Yeah, I think we should we should put that as well in case it's related to today's topic.
So, Venerable Bhante, this is from Gihantar again. It says, P.S. ending suffering is also ending happiness as we know it, ending living itself. Most of us want the suffering to end, but also want the happiness and living to continue. A catch-22. Perhaps you can't have the cake and eat it too.
Yeah, I think I answered that earlier. That's why many people, they wish to go to heaven and avoid hell. But it's the two sides of the same coin, right? So you can't have a cake and eat it too. That's the whole idea. You have to decide what to do. Whether I'll continue this both with happiness and suffering, or whether I will eradicate the whole process. Yes.
I think we have answered all of the questions now. Thank you, Venerable Bhante. Much merits. I will hand over to Sonali.
Thank you, Bhante. That was very thought-provoking for everyone. So everyone has asked questions. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to open to everyone to ask questions today because we ran out of time. And we now move on to ending the session. Thank you, Venerable Bhante, to always guiding us and always helping us with these sessions and being a continued guide on this. And also, we can't forget the Chief Abbot of Nisaranawane, Venerable Udayirigama Dhammajiva Mahatero, whose idea was to initiate this program as well. May you both improve your own practice with these merits. And thank you to all the organizers who are helping to bring this program to you weekly. And thank you to everyone who's listening, participating, sending us encouraging messages, as well as all your reports to be presented. And this does help everyone, not just you. So thank you for all of you. And thank you to everyone who's listening and watching as well. So as usual, our program will come to you at 1 p.m. Sri Lankan time. So this may adjust your time wherever you are from. So please look out for the relevant poster. And I now wish everyone a happy and mindful week ahead. I will move on to ending the session now.